It does get better as you start practicing watching your own mind, being aware of your behavior, not blaming the other person, and instead looking at what am I doing? And then you can start changing these patterns. But first is awareness. Awareness always comes first. So where are you? When you slip into stressed out mode, when your brain has gone into defense rather than connection, where do you go? Hello, you gorgeous and sexy creature. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships that you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and today we're going to talk about the Relationship Quadrant. Ooh! So, this comes from Relational Life Therapy. The therapist who created that RLT, his name is Terry Real. He is very good at couples work. He is very, very good at helping couples come into a space where they really see what they're doing. Because so often in relationship, we look at our partner and we're like, you're doing this. And if you would just be different, everything would be fine. I would feel better. I wouldn't want to argue with you. We would be fine. But in fact, almost always, I'm not going to say always, because there are some cases where one person is truly the problem and they need to change. But most of the time, what's going on is looking at yourself and seeing that you're having behaviors that maybe are making the relationship more challenging than it needs to be. So Terry is great at helping people see what they're doing in relationship that's causing problems and continuing whatever pattern people are in. And one of the things that he does is brilliant is a relationship grid. It is a quadrant where on one side, he's talking about people who are boundaryless, and on the other side, people who are walled off, so two boundaried. And then the other part of the quadrant, not quadrant, I don't know, the vertical is people who are in a less than position. So he calls it shame at the bottom, or a one-up position. He calls this grandiosity. And so this quadrant, it's got one line that has to do with boundaries and one line that has to do with self-esteem. How do I view myself in comparison to others? And in the center, if you've got boundaries that can move along from being open to a little bit more closed, depending on the situation, because we all need to have boundaries that are flexible and able to adapt whatever's happening around us. And then a self-esteem that can go up and down, but in a healthy way, not too far above, not too far below. We're all actually the same. My value and worth is the same as your value and worth, which is the same as everyone else's. And when you get in that center space, you're operating in health. If you get too far out on the quadrant, you are no longer operating in health, and instead you're operating in one of four unhealthy and potentially problematic ways of being in relationships. So let's go through all four of them. If you are one up and boundaryless, so if you're in the grandiose space and boundaryless, then what this typically looks like is forcefully trying to get your partner to behave in the way that you want. And so this quadrant would be what Terry calls the Quadrant of Violence. There would be acting out behavior. If you're boundaryless, then you're letting everything out. That might be cussing at your partner. That might be throwing things. That might be getting physically aggressive. Or more subtly, you might be kind of how I used to be. So I would do the throwing things and all of that, the yelling, all of that. But I would also cry hysterically in an attempt to get. This isn't like conscious. It wasn't conscious manipulation. It was just my parts doing what they did based on everything I had learned about the world, but crying hysterically in the attempt to get my partner to understand why I'm so upset. And really, if you dig a little deeper, it's an attempt to get my partner to do what I want them to do. And so boundaryless and one up is I am right. I deserve something. You're not giving it to me. And so I am going to try and make you give it to me in some way. There's a book that actually fits really well with this model, and I cannot remember what it's called right now. I will put it right here. I will name it right here. But he talks about control dramas in the book, and there's 4 different control dramas, and they actually fit perfectly with the quadrants. And so the control drama that would be here would be the intimidator. I am going to intimidate you in some way, whether that's with yelling, whether that's with big emotional outbursts and unbridled self-expression, but I'm going to do something that's super boundaryless to try and get you to behave in the way that I want you to behave so that I feel better. 1 up, boundaryless. 1 down, boundaryless. So if you're in more of a shame position, I am not as good as other people, my self-esteem is low, and I'm also boundaryless, then usually what this looks like is more of a desperation. I think Marilyn Monroe might be a classic example of somebody who would be in the 1 down, boundaryless position, where the feeling of it is like, love me, love me, love me. I will do anything if you will love me. So I'm not good enough for your love, but I'm going to try really, really hard because I'm boundaryless. I'm going to try so hard to get love from you, get acceptance from you, get something from you so that I feel better about myself and so that I feel acceptable. And with the control dramas, this one would be called grabby. It's got the energy of grabbiness, which feels accurate whenever I think about it, because I personally move between these 2 most of the time. I tend to be more boundaryless rather than walled off in my least healthy moments, my least relational moments, which there's no shame in having non-relational moments, just learn from it. And so when you are in the more grabby, boundaryless position, what you're looking for, what you're attempting to get in your control drama of grabbiness is some kind of validation that you are acceptable, that you are worthy, that you are lovable, and you're attempting to get that from a partner. And all of these are also kind of on a scale, a spectrum. This could happen really subtly at times, just where inside of you, you feel the desire to chase after your partner, or it could happen really, really big sometimes. I'm thinking about a client whose partner was going to leave, and so they drank bleach to try and get their partner to stay, and it worked. So this could fall on a big spectrum of behavior. On the other side, let's just kind of do a circle around the quadrants. On the other side, 1 down and walled off would be depressed. This is the quadrant of depression. This one might not sit well inside some people, but the control drama name for this quadrant would be poor me. It's got a poor me energy. I am so bad. I am not worthy. No one will love me. And the reason why this one is walled off is because a person who's in that space of serious depression, they really can't take in love from another person. They can't take in connection, bonding, being with, any of that. And sometimes it's because their own system is saying, I'm not good enough, I can't take it in. But a lot of the time, it's just physiologically not possible because of the space they're in. They feel so down on themselves that it's not possible to take in another person's kindness, love, and care because it does not match the internal system's knowing. And so the unconscious bias just sticks with their knowing and keeps everything else out. And the feeling of this one, I'm thinking on the more subtle end of things, would be like a partner who is kind of depressed and distant. And they don't come to you to talk to you about like, here's what's going on with me. If you try to talk to them, you might feel like you're attempting to drag information out of them, but it never comes. And then on the more extreme end, it would look like serious depression, isolation, being completely closed off from everyone and just being in a shame pit of I am unworthy, I'm not good enough, plus potentially actual depression, not getting out of bed, not feeling any joy in life. That would be the experience on the extreme end of this quadrant. And then the final quadrant, Terry Real calls this one contempt, the quadrant of contempt. It is one up and walled off. And when I think about this one, the mental image I get is of a very rich, waspy woman with a martini looking down her nose like, go die. That's what I see in my mind. Or more, it's not even like F you, go die. It's more like, you don't get any of my time or attention because you're unworthy of my love, and I will show it to you. She doesn't have that voice in my head. I'm not doing a very good job of the voice, but this one is, I am better than you. I want nothing to do with you, and so I'm just gonna to anything that you bring to me. In the control drama realm, this would be called aloof. That's what this quadrant would be. If somebody is aloof, they are standoffish. They are not interested in like receiving any, there's a train going by, you can probably hear it. They're not interested in receiving anything that the other person might say. So they're not letting anything in, and they're also not letting anything out. It's more of like a cold freeze. So if you've ever experienced having a partner who can do the like, you're dead to me, I'm not even going to look at you kind of coldness, that would be this quadrant. One up, walled off. Whew, we did it. We did all of them. So here's my invitation to you. Think about these different quadrants. Where do you tend to live? Do you live one up and boundaryless, kind of like an intimidator energy whenever you are triggered and stressed out? Do you live in one down, boundaryless, desperately looking for validation and for your partner to make you feel good? Are you living in more the depressed, one down, walled off space where you feel lonely and isolated and there really is a lot of distance between you and whoever you are with because you just can't pull yourself out of feeling not good enough? Are you in the top quadrant where you're one up and walled off? So like contemptuous feel, coldness, freezing out your partner whenever you're angry at them, or hurt. It's usually what ends up happening. We're hurt, and then we move into these states of being which are not relational but are attempts to protect ourselves in whatever way we learned how to do that. And so where do you go? What is your typical way of moving? And you might find that you go in different directions depending on whatever's happening. So for me, I tend to live one up boundaryless until my partner is really tired of me, and then I'll go to desperate. When I say really tired of me, they're tired of me acting one up and boundaryless, and then I go to desperate. No, please don't leave me. I didn't mean any of it. And then very rarely do I do the walled off space, but sometimes it happens. And this is at my worst. Thankfully, it's gotten better. Sometimes I still do all of these things because human, but it does get better as you start practicing watching your own mind, being aware of your behavior, not blaming the other person, and instead looking at what am I doing? And then you can start changing these patterns. But first is awareness. Awareness always comes first. So where are you? When you slip into stressed out mode, when your brain has gone into defense rather than connection, where do you go? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear which of the different quadrants resonate with you. Tell me if you notice, like sometimes I go here, sometimes I go here. In this relationship, I do this. In this other relationship, I do that. Tell me all of it. I'm so interested in hearing your way of understanding this concept. Okay. Remember to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.